Hello everybody, I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel. This is Steve coming back with another video for your enjoyment. As always, it's appreciated your subscriptions to this channel to help me continue to grow. In this session, what we're going to be doing is discussing, of course, the C64 Basic Marathon, moving forward with some more of the game design. We're going to get more into kind of the role-playing environment and just setting up a small mini interaction game at this point. So let's get started. Hi guys, I just wanted to explore some RPG games that are currently out there. These are some of the earlier experiences I've had with RPGs. And this one is actually called The Adventures of Mad Dog Williams. It was made somewhere around in the 1990s, somewhere around that time. And this one is about an adventurer that has to, basically he learns about a quest, and along the way he has to go ahead and rescue a princess that was kidnapped by an evil, I guess, I don't know, just an evil person. And she's being held prisoner in a castle, you know, like in a dungeon and stuff like that. So it's got a lot of interaction. It's got like the parse textures where you can actually interact with the keyboard at the bottom here and stuff like that. It's got like, you know, his hit points at the top there, the gold pieces, which we'll be discovering in this session of the text adventure we'll be talking about, eventually evolving into a game. Of course, it's got a score counter. I eventually hope to add music later, but you know, it's just got a lot of these things that we could actually use. I'm going to kind of skip around here because there's a lot of talking going on with this one here. Okay, and then basically kind of skip around here a minute. Okay, and then here's some of the other parts of the castle and stuff like that. This part is pretty boring here, so I'm just kind of skipping around to see if we can get to any of the action scenes and there's stuff you can interact with the environments. I like the idea of interacting with stuff like that. That would really keep it interesting. But yeah, this one was really enjoyable. It was actually pretty long, and that's kind of like what I'm kind of aiming at. So I think somewhere here he fights, this guy's like looking at every little thing there is, so it's kind of like if I don't skip ahead, you know, he's looking at every detail of everything here. So, and then this is the one where the woman was kidnapped. This is the room that she was kidnapped in, the princess. So let's move on to the next adventure here. Okay, so we're on to the next one. This one is actually called the King Quest series. It was made in somewhere around the 1990s also. Actually, I think this might have been the 80s, excuse me. By the company called Sierra. And they also, the founders of the company are Ken and Roberta Williams, and they ended up designing the Space Quest series and just a lot of really fun interactive games. This one has a text parser, which we'll be exploring and added to ours as well. This one's really interesting because it's a lot of interaction with game characters and stuff like that. It's got the little messages on the screen and stuff like that. I'm going to skip around on this one because this guy's kind of all over the place. And you got so where you can actually go inside of I like we can go inside the houses and environments and stuff like that. We'll do stuff like that. To make a game really engaging, you don't want to just have a bunch of fights going on. You want to be able to make it, there are rest periods, which I've discovered by watching other videos, where you kind of give the player a break and they can kind of start doing some exploring and stuff like that. Makes it a little bit more interactive and a little bit more interesting along the way here. So this one is about the witch scenario here. I'm just going to kind of skip over there a little bit here. There's a lot of interaction with this one. Here you can see he's kind of interacting with people. He's using a text parser again to kind of respond and stuff like that. So we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so we finally move on to the one here called Ultima. I believe this was the fourth one. It's made by a person called Lloyd British. This became real popular. It was ported to a lot of different systems, from the Commodore 64 to the Atari. I think it was the Atari and the Apple, and eventually the DOS systems. It moved across because it was very, very popular. And this one is uses a text parser, but the text parser is over here on the side, and you kind of interact with the game that way. You have the little interactive environment. And I like to have those little parsers on the side, and you have the little stat screen and stuff like that. That's kind of interesting. It also doesn't take up the full space of the game. You notice it's kind of compressed, so they're utilizing less space there, and probably for memory reasons and stuff like that. And it's got interaction with game enemies and stuff like that. The game is really interesting, and I don't want to slam it or anything, but it's got a real strange path it takes later, which basically involves going to another planet, time machine, and whatnot. But this is not a review. I just wanted to get you an idea that I'm reviewing these games, looking at them to try to get an idea of how to move forward with our adventure here. So let's see what else we have in here. This one's kind of stuck on here. So it's got like all these different interaction screens and stuff like that. It's also using very standard graphics here. This is in no way the power of what the C64 is capable of doing and stuff like that. But yeah, let's move forward here. Okay guys, so we are back with a live game in progress. This is just to kind of introduce you. This is actually my role-playing adventure, if you would, D&D, Dungeons and Dragons type scenario. Basically what we're going for is in the spirit and the line of Ultima series. The Ultima, what was it, the fourth one or the fifth one that really became real popular. It was ported to a lot of different systems. I want to model after that. I did mention before I also want to model after Telling and any other kind of role-playing adventures, and I'd like to hear your information and description about any other games you can think of. Because if I haven't explained it before, what we're doing is this is called a basic marathon, so we're going in sequence of steps. I'm trying to probably not go too fast, and I probably am going too fast, so excuse me on that. But at the same time, I'm trying to help you grow your skills as a programmer. And at the same time, we're going to keep evolving this and evolving it. It's going to start, text-based, and eventually it's going to go to AXI, and eventually it's going to go to sprites, and it's going to, if all goes well, it's going to go to a really nice full game with complete AI and everything in the end. So we want to have really a smart game and just a whole interactive and fun environment. But it's going to start in these sequence of steps. So let's get started on this one, as I mentioned. So this one, to kind of explain it, you can kind of see on the screen here. It shows regular, these are just some of the roll statistics you're going to see in these kind of RPG, if I would, style games. Here it shows the player's strength. It shows the level I'm at. It shows my experience. I also added something here called a threat meter. This basically tells whether you're encountering a bad guy or not. Otherwise, it will say none. There's also a gold level, and there's also the monster strength. For now, these are just some basics. I know there's like charisma, agility and all that stuff we could add later, but this is just kind of getting started. I also put in here a randomized picker, so it tells you you're at a different location. So whenever you complete a task at the end, it's going to randomize a clearing just for, an environment for now. That will change later. This is just to kind of get the thing going. And then obviously there's a couple of different things going on here. Interaction, what you see on the screen, it tells you the strength of the character you're fighting, and it just kind of gives a mini introduction. You draw your sword, prepare to fight, and then basically you struck the wizard here, because you can see the wizard has received 119 in damage. But it's randomized, so it'll go through, and I'll just kind of play it to show you here for a second. So I'll make it back over here. And if I hit the spacebar right now, it's locked in so that you don't have to kind of set delays on the screen as you're throwing messages out. So I just kind of set it like this, and if I hit the spacebar, it'll clear itself here, like that. And I have commands in, so if I'm hitting enter, it's actually, I have to fix that because I have it set up right now just to hit enter. Well, if you hit enter, it's set up right now, but originally I'm going to have commands like, and if you type fight, you'll fight. If you want to eat, there might be something like eat. If you want to walk, north, south, east, west, kind of like text-style adventure. But later, the text-style adventure will evolve into a joystick. Instead of just having to type in north, south, east, or west, you'll actually be able to use a joystick to move in the appropriate direction. And if all goes well later, hopefully we'll have scrolling and just all that kind of fun stuff, animation, whatnot. But here we see, now you see the next thing that's happened. Suddenly you see the wizard, so I've got that on the screen here. And it possesses, it tells you his strength now, 580 strength. You draw your sword, prepare to fight, you missed, of course. So now we'll go ahead and, like I said, normally you would type in fight or something like that once I get it set up correctly. The wizards receive 128 in damage. Now watch his meter, he's at 580, you'll see his strength drop. You'll see my strength stay the same, and you see his strength just dropped again there. And it keeps track of the same direction you're at, because when you're fighting with a character in RPG, you're coming up to them and you're kind of stopping, and you're just drawing your sword or whatever the situation will be, and of course they're combat and interacting with you in that way. Okay, so as you continue to go through the game, it's just going to keep telling you more things here. So it's real simple. So the wizards receive 121 in damage. You can kind of see that he's going down in damage now. Eventually you'll see me get hit here somewhere. Okay, I missed that time. So if I missed, actually I probably need to say you missed and he missed or something, but it's like you're taking turns back and forth kind of thing. So fight. Wizards receive 125 in damage. So it looks like I'm going to probably kill him. 127 damage, and I could probably fix this randomized scenario I have going on, because this one's making it too easy to kill my enemy. I think I got him now, so it's at 57. Let's see if I get him. 129 in damage. So now you'll see that he dies, and you'll see the threat meter now shows none. I just wanted to show you. See my golds increase, and my strength's actually going back, and I actually have my strength increase once you kill the enemy. And of course, like in a game, once you kill an enemy, you'll clear that area, and you just kind of keep walking forward to the next adventure, whether you're just walking to a village or whatever it is. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the code now, so you can now you got an idea of the actual game here. Okay, guys, I'm back here. I'm showing you just some of the listing going on here right now. So to kind of explain this, what we're going to be doing is going over how to read data statements and stuff. I think we may have already talked about this, but it's really important that you kind of break it down. This will probably end up being a longer video because there's a lot of code. Coding videos are always going to be longer, just kind of forewarning on that. So let's start and break this down line by line here. Okay, so I'm back here. So I was trying to make it so that the screen fits in. It's still cutting off a little bit on the bottom here, but you can see the line there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to find out where this data statement is reading. Now the way it works is when you do a data statement, the Commodore 64 system is going to go from the top of your program all the way down until it finds the first data statement. Once it finds a data statement, it's going to start reading into the length of that loop. So you can see here, like I said, we got from 1 to 8. So we're going to kind of list the program here. I already know where it is, so I'm not going to show you everything here, but it's right here at the end. So it's going to start reading down here at the end right here. You see on line 7030, you see thief, bat, snake, witch, and so on. So what it's actually doing is just reading that first line. So if you count them, there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 items here. So that first loop is reading in our enemy. Okay, and let's go list 40 just to show you. Or was it not 40? I'm sorry, was it 35. I got these broken down in. So anyways, 35 is the next line we're going to be reading here. So 35, I just like to kind of keep them on the screen there. So 35, you can see it's actually reading only 7. So x equals 1 to 7. Again, we're going to count 1, 2, and you see this is 2 because there's no comma. The comma separates them. 3, 4, 5, no comma again. 6, no comma. 7. So always look wherever that comma is. That's going to start 1. That's going to start 2. That's going to start 3. Just to explain, that's going to start 4, and so on. That's how you divide them for those who are still learning basic or whatever. Okay. And eventually, I haven't mentioned it really, but we'll get into assembly language further along as we start writing in machine language subroutines directly inside of basic. They're called machine language subroutines when you're basically using a bunch of data and statement numbers that's reading essentially assembly language behind the scenes there. But that'd be for speed, timing, and restaurant or stuff like that. So going through the program here, and I'm going to try to break it down without having to read every little thing, because I know programming videos can be long and boring sometimes. Just to kind of show you where it says MS equals 0, that stands for monster strength. The HS equals 0, that's my human strength. The EX, that's your experience. The GD is your gold, and LB is your level, of course. Now you see the next line here says go sub 2204, so we're going to go there. And for those who don't know, a go sub statement is going to hit that area, that number, and keep going through those statements line by line, so from 2204 all the way down until it sees a return. Once it sees a return, it goes back to the same line right after the go sub. So what this line doing here, this is actually randomizing our monster and our enemy environment. So it's basically going to say what monster are we currently fighting that has appeared on the screen, and what environment are we currently in. Are we near a castle? We are clearing. As you saw already down in the lines, I probably skipped over that real quickly here, so let me go back there real quick here. Yeah, I probably just came over that. So right here, so it's clearing force when I was reading them. These are the environments that it was basically, you saw me earlier, it had clearing on the screen. Whatever it is, it's going to read that environment to show you what area you've arrived in. And that's important for text adventures, and especially role adventures when we get into them much later here. Okay, so 2204, getting back on track here. So we're reading in We're starting at 1, so we don't use 0. I don't like to usually use 0, so I always add a 1 to it, although you can read from 0. And then we had an integer, which if you don't do an integer, you're going to get essentially, I think it's called a floating point number, where it actually starts, basically looks like a decimal number. And you can work with decimal numbers, but in this case I don't want to work with decimal numbers because I want to work with whole numbers. It's just easier for the computer here. So I'm reading a whole number from 1, and it says here times 7. So essentially it would normally have read from 0 to 7, but here it's adding a 1 to it. So it starts at 1, but it doesn't go past 7. That's the whole idea of it. And I think it might go to 8 anyway because it's adding the 1 to it. But anyways, that's what it's doing. It's actually reading, and actually I need to fix one of those because I just noticed that the first one is 7 and the second one is 8, so I'll have to go back and fix that later. But for now, it still reads it in most of the time. The next line you see there, MT equals none, that's the one for the threat meter. When you first start the game, it's going to start no threat, so it's going to say none. And then we return as we mentioned there. So we'll go back now that we hit our return here, we're going back. Okay. So number 55 here is where we left off because we're right under the go sub. Remember, go sub and return takes us to the next line. So now we're going to clear the screen with print CHR string to 147, and then we're going to basically color the border in the screen. Not to go over that, I went over that in a previous video. We're coming to our new go sub here on line 56. So if you ever want to follow a program, always do it this way. When you see a go sub, follow it, and then kind of mark out what that section's doing. I do the same thing when I'm hacking games too. I'll go through the code, figure out what it's doing, and I'll keep track of what that memory address is doing actually. Like when I did, Pitfall 2 and Spelunker. More of those to come later, by the way. So the next thing here you can see is just printing out your stats on the screen. That's pretty standard, hopefully for most people to understand your strength. HS is just reading those values you saw at the very beginning of the screen. It's always a good idea, by the way, to initialize your variables at the beginning. Old school stuff, but very important. And then you have your experience, your threat meter we saw earlier, gold, and so on. Now here I put if MS is less than 1, then return, because down here it's going to show your monster strength. But if the monster has not appeared on the screen, then we don't want to show the monster strength yet. So it's kind of little tricks I've done, these little flags, and just kind of say, okay, we could still go through these lines and include it. But if it gets to this line, it's always going to set off, because remember, monster strength starts at 0, so the first time you won't see this. And then, of course, it's once you see the monster strength, it prints and it returns. So we'll go back to the next line there. And I even wrote down here monster damage to kind of show you what's going on there. The next line is 6030. So we're going to follow that. And you see here it says arrived at. That's basically telling what area have we walked into. And you saw this earlier. So you have arrived at a en strings en. And I'm going to run the game here for a minute, keeping track of 6030 in my head, and just play it for a second so I can kind of show you what that means. Go back to 6030 here, and I'll show you. Otherwise, I can explain it, but it's easier if I just kind of break it down. So line 6030, for example, it says you have arrived at a, and you can just print en strings just to kind of show you what it does here. Bridge. So basically it's reading those data statements, and it's randomizer. Remember earlier when we were randomizing en? That's what it did. It picked the bridge location, and it's just showing you have arrived at a bridge. Okay, let's go forward from there. Okay, so here the next thing I have is monster. I think that's monster points or something there. I don't remember the end. Oh no, map. I'm sorry, map. This is what I was using, and I haven't implemented all the way. So if we're not moving, then it's going to return. Otherwise, I was going to have it say it if you start moving and suddenly you see monsters, because like in a real game, as soon as you start moving from one level to the other, you're going to start running into bad guys eventually as you start, trespassing on their lands. Okay, so next thing here you would see, and right now this is probably being ignored because I haven't implemented it. You see suddenly you see and this is going to read the monster. That's the next thing here. I can print that too since I've got the game running in progress, kind of. I just stopped it on just to show you what the values are doing here. I think it's easier if people understand if they see it for themselves. So you can see the witch. So we encountered the witch. So the witch is what's showing up there. The next line here, this is reading that threat meter. Now what I did earlier, it started at none, right? But now you notice it says is equal to mo strings mn, and you saw I just printed this. So now the threat meter is showing that the witch is on the screen, so it basically pre-fills the threat meter. And we'll add different stats and stuff later, but this is just kind of starting out. Okay, and then it tells you it possesses MS strength, and this is just reading the monster strength, and later you'll see what this is, but it keeps track of what the monster strength at the beginning. I set to 0 here. If those people don't know, this is an input statement. It's just receiving and waiting for a keyboard response. This next one is a variable, and what it's doing is it's pulling the left value that you type into the keyboard. So for example, I'll just run it here to show you, or I could just continue it since it's running in, well, let me continue. I'll run it here in progress, and just to show you right there, fight. I'll stop right there, and I'll go back to that line just to kind of show you in progress what it's doing. So we're at line 60. It's listed on the screen there. And you see, if we put CM strings on the screen, it says fight, right? Because that's what I typed in earlier, which is going to be one of the commands I'll be using. And we hit BA strings. See what it did? It says FIG. So it's only taking the first 3 letters of this. This is common for text adventures. You always just want to get the first 3 and kind of work with them. You don't really need the full word unless you're doing other things. And that's what it's doing, is it's pulling the first 3 words up. It's pulling off the first 3 letters on the left side, and it counts over. So basically, this is the left side, 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. So now we're on to line 1000. So I isolate that one here. Okay. So we know what this is pulling off the left. Now it's saying, is that left going to be equal to fig? I'm sorry, is it not equal? Greater, this is greater or less than, so it means not equal. If it's not equal, it's going to skip over all this. Otherwise, it's going to read this. And this is essentially a good way you want to do when you're trying to read, a command parser into the game and want to make sure it's interacting with it appropriately. So now, we'll say he did type in fight. So yes, now this is true. Since what it's doing here, it's saying it's not equal to this one. So that made this line fail, but this one became true because it's no longer not equal to fight, but it's equal to fight. So it just goes down to the next line. And then now we're going down here, and we're going to get the stats. So MA is the, I know I'm going to forget these again, the monster's attack. Okay, so that's just showing the attack of the monster. I started at 100, and I set a random value of 8 to kind of figure out the monster's attacking within a certain range that we can actually... actually, it's because there's actually 8 characters in the game, there's actually 8 monsters currently, so I set that based on that 8, setting it at 100 and whatnot. The DM is the next one. That's the damage level. No, damage to the monster, sorry. So damage to the monster. So first we got monster attack, then we got the damage to the monster. I set this one at 10, and this is basically determining how much damage is going to be inflicted. And these are just numbers I played with, and I can still continue the changes as we go through it. But just know they're just randomizing, and whenever you see a net equals plus, it's just starting at that value. It starts at 100. So I read a value between 100, and it's reading up to a random value of 8 on that one. So it's 100 plus integer of randomization. So it could be up to 108, in other words. 10 plus integer of 100, and so on. And this one right here, I think this one is, see, I know I'm going to forget these. DA is the damage or something. Here, right down, it tells me that's the MO strings has received in damage. So that's the monster damage. I probably could have named it something different here. I should have called it probably MD. But anyways, that's the damage of the monster. And then this one, remember, that's the monster strength. If it's less than 1, so the monster has not been on the screen yet, then now that we know that we've entered a fight scene, we want to set the monster strength. So what we do is we set it to 1100 by default. I just picked a number and kind of played with it. This next one here is going to take a little bit of work, a little bit of understanding. So where it says DA greater than 100 and DA less than 115, this is looking through this whole range. It's going from 100, and remember DA is a random value, so it's picking at 100 up to times 50. I know I kind of skipped over that. So it's saying, is it 100, is it 101, 102, 103, all the way up to 115. If any of these ranges are equal, it's going to set a flag here. And we're setting these on. These are called blows, by the way, like you're striking out, or they're striking out, or you're missing and they're missing. And this one is going from 114 up to 140. So this is kind of our next sequence of our random values from this DA. It's all taken care of by this. Since it goes up to 150, 100 plus 50 is 150. And this one, and actually I might need to fix that. I just noticed this is going a little bit higher here. 100 plus 50 That's probably why this one's not working very well. This goes up to 200, but anyways, coming back to that. So this one goes from 141 to 165, and again, I'm just playing with these values. 165 up to 200, and these are the different flags I've set for each one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then once we have those values set down here, we're going to use the human damage one. So if they hit you, there's going to be a damage being done. I started at 10, and I set an integer up to 100, so that it would go from 10 plus 100, and it's going to go within that range there. Here we're turning on the color a little bit, and I'm kind of skipping ahead, but this will make more sense once you see the actual variable. So let's get down to the variable. But before we do that, actually, there's a go sub here, so we need to follow this go sub 6040. So I'm going to keep track of where I'm at again. I'm on line 1090. Okay, got to record that in my head there, 1090. Okay, so we'll come back to 1090 in a minute. Okay, now we're going to say suddenly you see an MO strings MN, and this is just telling you that now you're seeing the monster on the screen. And remember, we already know that that's going to print the monster's name, or the type of monster. And here, we're setting that value, and I think we probably read all this stuff earlier. Possesses MS strength, return. So it's basically just coming back to this line saying that there's a monster, now show his stats and show his information. Get back to 1090 here. Okay, so I'm actually going to put a few more lines earlier. If I don't, you might get a little confused wondering where all that data is coming from. So we'll put this back on the screen. Okay, but I needed to kind of isolate these. Okay, so once we come back and we've encountered the monster and his strength, print those values on the screen, now we're going to say, you draw your sword and prepare to fight. That's just kind of a standard message I put on the screen for now. Here, remember, our values being set by these memory ranges. So if it's reading a certain random range, it's going to check it based on these flags we set earlier here. And down here, we can make it print and do different things. So I just say, if BL equals 1, and this is very simple. You could do it with on statements later. But if BL equals 1, then we're going to say the monster, in this case, the witch or whatever, has received an DA and damage. Remember, that's going to tell how much. First of all, it's going to tell what the damage is because it picks that value up here. So it's going to print that number on the screen, and then it's going to actually keep track of the damage that's being inflicted to that monster, which is the next part here. You see the MS, that's the monster strength. Remember, it started at 1100. We saw that up here when we set it. And now it's saying MS equals MS minus MA. So it's going to start deducting from the monster's strength, and that's what the MA actually was. This is the monster's attack. So probably a bad variable name, but basically it means you attack the monster and his strength started getting depleted. The next one here is, this is another, pick it again from number 2. If we go to number 2 here, you'll see it's going 165 to 200, but I know I need to fix that. But anyways, number 2 is going to say the monster missed, and this one's not coming up because I'm not currently reading those values correctly, but we can fix it by changing the number up there. But for now I have it set to a certain way, so I'm going to leave it this way. The next one is going to say number 3. If you look up here for number 3, you'll see it goes from 141 up to 165 and not past that range. So from 145 to 165, once that's received, we set the flag to BL equals 3. That's the blow again. And then once you've set the blow, or they've set the blow, it says you have been hit. So this is where the monster hits you. The damage is HD, and this is where I'm picking this random value to kind of figure out what the damage is going to be. And then we just kind of start deducting from this damage algorithm that's going on. And it's just basically doing random damage to you. I could probably set that up a little bit more intelligently later, basically saying on the kind of monster you're hitting. And I did add a little bit of AI in here, and I'll show it to you. It's actually on the same line here. So your hit human strength equals human strength because you've been hit minus your HD. And you'll see I set minus MN. And MN is actually another value that's keeping track of how many monsters or which monster you're currently looking at. So I have these listed on up to a certain order. So I list the weakest monster first, all the way up to the strongest monster last, which is the dragon, and the troll is the second to the strongest one. So whatever that monster strength is, you're going to add 2 to it each time. So if it's equal to 8, that's actually going to be 10 damage plus all this other damage that's being inflicted on you. So that's a way to kind of say that this monster has more strength than that monster or whatnot. Okay, so the next one here is blow equals 4. And remember again, the 4 is up here, 100 to 115. You miss. So pretty often you're going to miss. Well, it don't know, it's a random, so it's basically, you know, setting these values. And of course, if we fix this line, we can fix all that. But anyways, enough of that, right? Let's move on. So these are kind of the stats and interaction that's going on with the monster here. So let's go to 4000, which we see on 1120 here. Okay, this is the one I was talking about, the keyword. So once you have all these stats, and I'm sorry, these actions being displayed on the screen, whether it's being hit, whether you're hitting a monster or whatever, we're going to print that on the screen, but we don't want to make it go away. So what I've actually done here is I've actually allowed you to hit the keyboard and wait for the keyboard. That's what this get keywise is. It's saying if the keyboard is not equal to the space bar, that's character pet XC32, which is the space, then we're going to stay on this line 4000 and wait for the space bar to be hit. And then once it's hit, we just return back to our line wherever we started there. Okay. So now that we've gone down here, now that we've completed the monster sequence, we basically just reset our values, our blows back to 0, because we're going to kind of start over again. We don't want it to cheat and kind of still remember another value if it's starting over again. Okay, the next thing here is if our hit strength is greater than 0, then it's 1140. So in other words, if we're still alive, then it's okay to skip all this dead sequence, which we'll go over here in a minute, and continue the game. But of course, if your hit strength is not greater than 0, it's less than 0, you died, it's going to say mission is lost, you have been killed. And then here I just kind of put a simple routine input, play again. It's just going to print the message on the screen, play again, wire in. PL is just going to wait for a player response, and here it's going to say if you type in yes, it's going to clear the variables and allow you to start the game over again. If you don't, it's going to end the game. It's just a way of interacting with the game without just quitting it automatically. Okay. So remember this line here, if your hit strength is greater than 0, we're going to skip all this and go to 1140. And now we're going to check the monster strength. Is the monster now less than 1? So he has no strength. If he has no strength, then we're going to go down here to 5000. And that's where we defeat the monster. And again, let me keep track of my lines here. I'm at 1140. Okay, so we'll come back to 1140. So here we can see the monster. Remember, the monster's name is killed. So we killed the monster. He has no more strength, so we killed him. Now we finally get some rewards. So first we're going to increase our experience. And what I did is I increased your experience by the human damage that you received. So all the damage that he inflicted on you, or at least the last known damage. And later I could set those in arrays and make it keep track of all the damage he's done. Like, I don't know, some umpteen damage to you. We could actually add that back to our experience points and kind of increase and get back our justice for being killed or being almost killed by this monster. The next one is the human strength, and I set this one at 600. Not to be fair, I could have set it back to 900. I knew it started at 900, but we're also adding our experience on it, so that's going to kind of increase it here. We're multiplying it by 2, and we're multiplying it by the level. So as your level increases, guess what? So does your strength. So it's a great way to really continue the game and make your player more vulnerable, more stronger as you go forward in an adventure. Okay. So I know I'm talking fast, and I'll break this all down on my website, guys. I'll put that link in the description once I actually create that content for you. The next one here is our skill level, which I probably didn't put on the screen, but it's something I think I kind of snuck in here, or I may have had it on the screen. I just don't recall right now. So this is going to say once our skill level has reached 4th level each time, then we're going to increase our level. So you have to wait till the skill increases. So remember, every time we kill a monster, this skill level is going to increase 1, 2, 3, 4, and when it gets to 4, it's going to increase the level. And that's just so, like, if you're going through a screen and you're starting to like fight this set of monster, this set of monster, this set of monsters, it's going to take so many monsters before you finally get to increase the level. You know, that's just kind of how games work. We can change it up later, but that's just something I came up with. And then now we're going to set our hit damage back to 0, our monster strength to 0, just to make sure that everything's being cleared here appropriately. And we're also going to clear our threat counter because there's no more monster here. And we get our gold. That's pretty common in text adventures, role-playing adventures. We're going to increase our gold. I added 10 to it, and I multiplied it by our experience, so we get a lot of gold for killing these monsters and stuff. And here it says you received GD gold coins, so it's basically a real simple message just telling you that what you just received. And now we're going to go to 2204, which was our subroutine at the very beginning of the game, and that was the one I think that was the one that set up variables. No, it's okay. I know it is 22. Without looking at 2204 is actually where we are just resetting the monsters again, so that we can go back and create new random monsters once we get a random monster again. Okay, and then now here it says you have arrived at A, and we got this earlier, so it's not going down here, it's going to return, excuse me. But you kind of see how it's going in sequence here, and it's going to stay within this because it's a return, so it's going back to where it came from. Which is back here, of course, at the very, very beginning where we left off. Okay, and okay, we got to the part where we were killed at here. So we went through all that already, and then now we've gone down here. Remember, because we skipped over that line if we're still alive here. And then now if we're still alive, then it's saying if we're still at the keyboard and we're not typing in fight, then we could go down to the next command here. And let me go back so I can show you exactly what that is here, because I don't have it on the screen right now. Otherwise you might be like, what are you talking about here? I'm going to put it up here. So right here at the top, this is our fight routine, or otherwise go to 1150, and it won't fit on the screen, but I wanted to show you. If we go to 1150, that's our next command it's picking up. And we can put one after the other, skip this, do this, skip this, do this, and as you continue to build an interactive adventure. Okay, now we're at 1150, we're checking the next command. And I just put in east if you typed in east, and later it'll be like checking joystick movement, of course. And then if you are not going east, it's going to skip the 2190, which skips over all these lines right here, and it just goes back in the loop again. Otherwise, I put in here, and here it is, my map equals map plus 1. So basically, if we're moving in a direction, we're changing screens, so we're going to increase our map in the direction that we're moving in. And that's not set up appropriately. This is just a very generic example. But I think that's pretty much everything. This video is pretty long already, so I'm probably going to cut it there. If you have any questions about this, let me know. But like I said, it will be on the website later so that you guys can review it and hopefully give me your feedback on that if it's been clear, if there's things you don't understand. I'd be getting some interaction with you people, so your comments are really important. I do get emails from time to time, but I really would like to try to interact with you as much as I can. Okay. And thanks guys for watching. You guys have a great day. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video today. Look forward to more basic C64 Brain Basic Marathon videos to come. I appreciate your subscriptions as always. And hopefully very soon I'd like to get in maybe some Twitch TV streaming. We'll see how that goes. And if I also would like to mention, I do have an Atari channel now, if you're interested, for the Atari people. It's Atari65xe.com. I'll put the link in the description there for you. And also, if you're interested, you can also support me on Patreon now. So whatever you can do to help me do this full time would be awesome, because then I could give you even way more content, and we could build games so much faster. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and look forward to more videos. More game hacking videos, as I mentioned along the way. Thanks, guys. Bye.